Hi to Mrs. Brown's, Mrs. Hall's, Mrs. Healy, and Mr. Kastner's class, continuing to read The One and Only Ivan by Katherine Applegate, starting on page 101. This recording is courtesy of the publisher, Harper Collins, and the author. Ruby's story. Ivan, tell me another joke, please, Ruby begs after the 2 o'clock show. I think I may have run out of jokes, I admit. A story then, Ruby says. Aunt Stella's sleeping and there's nothing to do. I tap my chin. I'm trying hard to think. But when I gaze up at the food court skylight, I'm mesmerized by the elephant-colored clouds galloping by. Ruby taps her foot impatiently. I know. I'll tell you a story, she says. A real, live, true one. Good idea, I say. What is it about? It's about me. Ruby lowers her voice. It's about me and how I fell in a hole. A big hole. Humans dug it. Bob pricks his ears and joins us by the window. I always enjoy hearing a good digging story, he says. It was a big hole full of water near a village, Ruby says. I don't know why humans made it. Sometimes you just need to dig a hole for the sake of digging. Bob reflects. We were looking for food, Ruby says, my family and I. But I wandered off and got lost and went too close to the village. Ruby looks at me, eyes wide. I was so scared when I fell into that hole. Of course you were, I say. I would have been scared too. Me too, Bob admits, and I like holes. The hole was huge. Ruby pokes her trunk between the bars and makes a circle in the air. And guess what? She didn't wait for an answer. The water was all the way up to my neck, and I was sure I was going to die. I shudder. What happened then, I ask. I'll tell you what happened, Bob says darkly. They captured her and put her in a box and shipped her off, and here she is, just like they did with Stella. He pauses to scratch an ear. Humans. Rats have bigger hearts. Roaches have kinder souls. Flies have... No, Bob! Ruby interrupts. You're wrong. The humans helped me. When they saw I was trapped, they grabbed ropes and made loops around my neck and my tummy. The whole entire village helped. Even little kids and grandmas and grandpas, and they all pulled and pulled and pulled. Ruby stops. Her lashes are wet, and I know she must be remembering all the terrible feelings from that day. And they saved me, she finishes in a whisper. Bob blinks. They saved you? He repeats. When I was finally out, everyone cheered, and the children fed me fruit. And then all these humans led me back to my family, and it took a whole day to find them. No way, Bob says doubtfully. It's true, Ruby says, every word. Of course it's true, I say. I've heard rescue stories like that before. It's Stella's voice. She sounds weary. Slowly she makes her way over to Ruby. Humans can surprise you sometimes, an unpredictable species, Homo sapiens. Bob still looks unconvinced, but Ruby's here now, he points out. If humans were so swell, who did that to her? I send Bob a grumpy look. Sometimes he doesn't know when to keep quiet. Ruby smiles, and I'm afraid she's going to cry. But when she speaks, her voice is strong. Bad humans killed my family, and bad humans sent me here. But that day in the hole, it was humans who saved me. Ruby leans her head on Stella's shoulder. Those humans were good. It doesn't make any sense, Bob says. I just don't understand them. Never will. You're not alone, I say, and I turn my gaze back to the racing gray clouds. A hit. Stella's foot hurts too much for her to do any hand tricks for the 2 o'clock show. Instead, Mac pulls her limping into the ring where she tracks a circle in the sawdust. Ruby clings to her like a shadow. Ruby's eyes go wide when Snickers jumps on Stella's back, then leaps onto her head. At the 4 o'clock show, Stella can only get as far as the entrance to the ring. Ruby refuses to leave her side. At the 7 o'clock show, Stella stays in her domain. When Mac comes for Ruby, Stella whispers something in her ear. Ruby looks at her pleadingly, but after a moment she follows Mac into the ring. Ruby stands alone. The bright lights make her blink. She flaps her ears. She makes her tiny trumpet sound. The humans stop eating their popcorn. They coo, they clap. Ruby is a hit. I don't know whether to be happy or sad. Worry. When Julie arrives after the show, she brings 3 thick books, 1 pencil, and something she calls magic markers. Here, Ivan, she says, and she slides 2 magic markers and a piece of paper into my domain. I like the sundown colors, red and purple, but I don't feel like coloring. I'm worried about Stella. All evening she's been quiet and she hasn't eaten a bit of her dinner. Julia follows my gaze. Where is Stella anyway? She asks, and she goes to Stella's gate. Ruby extends her trunk and Julia pats it. Hi, baby, she says. Is Stella all right? Stella is lying in a pile of dirty hay. Her breath is ragged. Dad, Julia calls, can you come here for a minute? George sets aside his mop. Do you think she's okay, Dad? Julia asks. Look at the way she's breathing. Can we call Mac? I think there is something really wrong. He must know about her. George rubs his chin. He always knows, but a vest costs money, Jules. Please, Julia's eyes are wet. Call him, Dad. George gazes at Stella. He puts his hands on his hips and sighs. He calls Mac. I can't hear all of his words, but I see George's lips tightened into a grim line. Gorilla expressions and human expressions are a lot alike. Mac says there's a vet coming in the morning if Stella's not any better, he tells Julia. He says he's not going to let her die on him, not after all the money he put into her. George strokes Julia's hair. She'll be all right. She's a tough girl. Julia sits by Stella's domain until it is time to go home. She doesn't do her homework. She doesn't even draw. I'm going to post some more chapters this afternoon. Have a nice day.